Welcome to the Gus Alva Perspective, a videocast that's earmarked to address abundance and gratitude over the mindset of fear and scarcity. As a psychiatrist, as a practitioner of medicine, I oftentimes see the difference that exists in the outview that people have. I was speaking with a dear friend, more like a brother, recently, and we were talking about a mindset of abundance, and we were discussing an example of a big pie, and the fact that if one is hungry and one eats a slice of that pie, there's still an enormous pie that's left over for a lot of other people to enjoy and to feel full from. The individual that takes a look at the pie and wants the entire pie for themselves without sharing with others is that individual that has that scarcity mindset and that fear mindset that if somebody else reaches for a slice of that pie, they're not necessarily going to be able to get their slice. And the overall approach to life will vary greatly based on how it is that we approach it. And utilizing that specific example, but I'd like to touch on the topic that I want to address right now is that of morality and society. And again, I'm not necessarily preaching that I am a more moral or a more just or a more, benevolent individual than others, but it's not a bad idea for us to sometimes take a look deep inside ourselves and look at themes that might be difficult to really digest. And the topic of morality and the erosion that we see with morality in our current society is certainly a complex and multifaceted problem. I want to walk you through the perspectives that I'm seeing at the present time on morality. And obviously, first initiate by saying that this concept varies greatly across individuals and cultures, but I it's not a bad idea to take a look at and test out different topics such as this notion of erosion of morality in society and see where it exactly is coming from. Well, what I'm going to share with you right now is maybe the things that I attribute to the factors that may be evocative of this particular problem. Cultural shifts, technological advancements, and societal changes are certainly areas that have contributed towards this. And you might actually be thinking, why am I stepping on the moral high ground? Well, I'm going to give you three examples of areas where I have personally seen moral decay in our society. But rather than just talk about problems, I'm also going to give you 5 solutions that are possible that we as a society could potentially embrace and then take into context to see whether in fact it merits doing something or simply being static and not doing anything. So, what are some of the examples that I have seen recently? Well, the first one is that of relativism and individualism. What's that mean? Well, modern societies now have seen an increase in relativistic attitudes. What exactly does that mean? Well, it means that individuals believe that morality is subjective and will vary from person to person. Now, keep in mind that this can lead to a decline in shared moral values and a lack of accountability for one's actions. Do you want an example? I was recently in the city of San Francisco, and it turns out that shoplifting has become a common day occurrence down there. And oftentimes people are waiting in line to pay for an object, and then somebody else strolls in, grabs whatever they want, and then they leave. And they feel justified in doing just that. Now think about that because that actually creates additional problems. It makes that person that's standing in the queue ready to pay feel like a sucker. But in reality, we can't have chaos or anarchy occurring, but the individual that has that mindset of feeling like, again, their morality is different than that of others, well, that's going to pose a bit of a problem. Second thing that I'd like you to consider is the decline that we've seen in traditional institutions. I see this around me on a regular basis. Traditional institutions like religious organizations and community groups have certainly fallen greatly. They've historically, in the past, however, played a significant role in shaping moral values. And with the decline in religious participation that we see at the present time and a weakening of community ties, well, this is probably a very important area where we see uh, lack of guidance and moral authority then subsequently caving into individuals. A third area that I'd like you to consider is the moral dilemma that exists in the digital age. Now, everybody's desires are satiated immediately with a click of a button. The rapid development of technology and the rise, by the way, of social media platforms have presented new ethical challenges. As a psychiatrist, I see this on a regular basis where people come in and talk about being cyberbullied, being harassed online, having privacy concerns, and having misinformation spread about them that ultimately is an incredible example of a contributor towards a decline in moral behavior online, but spilling over into day to day life. So, what do we do? I mean, we see all of these things and we might feel flustered and we might just throw our hands up in the air. But it turns out that there's several potential strategies that we could actually be thinking about that might help us act in a proactive, concerted manner to actually evoke a better overall society. What's the first one? Well, one of the common themes that I actually address through these video casts is education. But it's not just about being book smart, it's having an ethical backdrop. And moral education is very important. We need to promote moral education in schools as well as communities. And through that, help instill ethical values, critical thinking, empathy, a sense of responsibility from an early age. Education, turns out, can play a vital role in shaping individuals' moral compasses. And ultimately, that is something that we carry through life. A second thing is strengthening community ties. Instead of people actually joining together, we see that there's this disbandment. And encouraging participation in community activities fosters a sense of belonging. Promoting face to face interactions ultimately will help reestablish a shared moral framework as well as values. And ultimately, these are things that can be achieved through community programs. People sometimes will volunteer, and social initiatives are just some examples of how that can go. A third area is that of ethical leadership. Promoting ethical leadership is very important. Unfortunately, nowadays we see politics and we see the exact opposite of that. We see businesses in which we see the exact opposite of that. And then we see the media, and unfortunately, we see the exact opposite of that. But we need to promote ethical leadership across all these areas. It's crucial that we take this into consideration. Leaders who prioritize integrity, transparency, and ethical decision making can set positive examples and influence others with these societal values that are lacking. A fourth area would be encouraging critical thinking. You know, we obviously need to have literacy that can help individuals navigate through complex landscapes. That includes information. You know, seeing sources of information or disinformation so that people can make appropriate, informed moral judgments. And the last area is that of dialogue and empathy. And the important thing here is that we are having just that right here through this video cast. We're having a dialogue and we're looking in a respectful manner to have this discourse between individuals who might have differing perspectives. Through that, we foster empathy and understanding, and constructive conversations ultimately help bridge moral divides and will ultimately help with creating a more cohesive society. Now, this topic I thought would be a little heavy, but if we don't speak about topics that are maybe controversial, then we're doing a bit of disservice. And addressing the erosion of morality in our current societal structure really does require collective effort. It requires individuals, families, communities, educational institutions, and society as a whole. Having that awareness of a problem is an excellent launching pad upon which we can make an enormous difference. And having a mindset of gratitude will help us along the lines of having that open-mindedness to be able to consider how it is that we might be able to correct specific areas that might be in decay. I thank you for joining us on the Gus Alpha Perspective, dealing with a very heavy theme in that of morality in our current societal state. Thank you.